Hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. Well, the last time Wrexham got to the fifth round of the FA Cup, Phil Parkinson still had 6 years left of his playing career, and 8 of our starting lineup on Friday night weren't even born. It was a monumental achievement for Wrexham to get this far, and now we are dreaming of the quarterfinals, the semis, maybe even going on to lift the cup ourselves. So on today's podcast, we'll look back at the Ipswich win, take a look at who we want to get in the next round, and we'll bring you some exclusive detail about Wrexham's pre-season schedule. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Well, Nath, you were there. The magic of the cup, Friday night, Kairos under the lights. Yeah, one of those games that maybe we weren't too sure how it would go, but Wrexham in the hat. And, dare we dream?
Thoroughly deserved, I thought. I think the outcome, not to take anything away from the performance because it was really good, I think the outcome was decided by the team selection. As I wrote in my piece, one manager took it seriously, the other manager didn't. And, Kieran McKenna wanted no part of continuing in the FA Cup, which was music to my ears. And I'm sure most Wrexham fans, Phil Parkinson was eager to get through, went with his number one goalkeeper, went with his first choice back three, went with the likes of Windass, Smith, who started a lot of games recently. And it was thoroughly deserved. I thought to a man, we were really, really good. Yes, it was only 1-0, but I thought we played really, really well against, even though Ipswich changed a lot of players, some really good players. Jens Kajust, who's on loan from Napoli at Ipswich, I thought is a fabulous footballer, just looked another level above in the early exchanges. But we made them look very ordinary, and I know it'll be a different game when they come back next week in the league, and no doubt, miraculously, Philogene will be fit, and Jack Clark will be starting, and Azon will probably be up front. But yeah, brilliant night under the lights, and while it may not have had the glamour of, say, Nottingham Forest, it is first time in 29 years we're in the fifth round, so dare to dream.
It's one of those, isn't it, where it can come across as kind of a cliche when sort of Rob and Ryan and Parky say, we want to win every game. Friday night proved they want to win every game. Doesn't matter the competition, the opposition. Wrexham want to win as many matches as they can, and a cup run, again, would be fantastic for the club, particularly if we can, who knows, quarterfinals. The semi-finals are played at Wembley, for anyone who doesn't know as well, so a trip to Wembley isn't that outrageous. Well, like we say, we'll get onto the draw later and teams that we could possibly face. We'll also read out some suggestions from you guys of the teams you do want and the teams that you don't want. I'd also say to you, Nath, here, because is this being devil's advocate too much and maybe being too disparaging? But does that not to say that Ipswich squad depth's not as good as Wrexham's if they made all those changes and there was a drop-off? Whereas when Wrexham make the changes, okay, we played the same back line that maybe we didn't expect, but we played our strongest defence. We made the changes in attack, and it didn't seem to derail us as much as it did Ipswich.
Yeah, I just felt like they wanted no part going through in the FA Cup. I think it was a collective effort to exit that competition. I felt like on the night, I felt like they didn't have a single shot on target. They didn't really try too hard to get one of those. They started okay, and then to a man, looked like they just were not bothered. They wanted to get back on the bus, get home, come back next week, and probably look like a completely different team and club and play very well and may well beat Wrexham next week. It's quite rare that you get these back-to-back games. I think Sutty wrote in his piece about how rare that is, that you get back-to-back games at the same stadium, and it'll probably be chalk and cheese. It'll be a completely different Ipswich that we see. But it is a shame when you see teams not care about the FA Cup. But then, I do understand as well that the FA Cup winner gets 2 million quid, give or take. And if you get promoted to the Premier League, you get at least 100 million. So in Ipswich's opinion, it was a no-brainer. They would rather focus on their sort of rearranged game against Portsmouth that's been postponed twice than a potential glamour game against, say, Arsenal or Man City.
Which they've already had last season as well. Do you know what I mean? For Ipswich, they were relegated to the Premier League, playing City away or playing Arsenal at home. Doesn't maybe have the same significance to it as it would be for us. And I hope we never lose that.
Spot on. I was about to say, just from the conversations I was having with people, I felt like there was no novelty element to Ipswich playing Man City or Arsenal. Like they've been there, done that. Similarly for like Burnley, they've scratched the Premier League itch. They don't like it. It's rubbish losing all those games. And whereas we would get really giddy if on Monday night we get that great draw, I think Ipswich kind of would have just shrugged their shoulders and said, right, when are we playing next in the Championship?
Yeah, and like I said, first of all, I hope we never lose track of that. If we become sort of a mid-table Premier League team, I don't want us to be one of these teams who throws off the FA Cup because we want to stay in the league. I just hope we never ever forget where we came from and how big the FA Cup is in Wrexham's history as well. Because cup runs used to keep the club alive. They were where we kind of made our reputation as well. Lots of people pre-takeover only knew Wrexham as that team who had those cup upsets and stuff. And I just hope we never ever lose that. But what is quite funny, Nath, is we are kind of running out of time for these Premier League games to become significant events, because the higher we get up the pyramid, the kind of less spectacle there is to some of these encounters. But like I said, we'll get onto the draw later. Let's talk about the game, the 1-0 win. Who stood out for you? Because I know Josh Windass is an interesting one. I always get asked about him we've got a mutual friend, Paul Hurst, who writes for the Times, who's a Sheffield Wednesday ultra. And he always asks us how Josh Windass is getting on. And it's a difficult one to gauge because the numbers don't lie. He's had a fantastic season. Just feels like he doesn't always maybe get the love that he needs at times. But I thought he looked really good at the heart of everything on Friday night. And he looked really up for it.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. He spoke after the match and, is very careful and considered with what he says. He doesn't speak for longer than he feels necessary. And, he can be slightly flippant, but that is just how he is. I feel like he's a very introverted character, whereas you might watch him and think he's very extroverted and very full of himself. I don't think he is. I think he's very introverted, doesn't have a lot to say to people, and that's absolutely fine. It was quite funny. I don't think I'm going to play that specific clip, but he was asked after in the press conference of who he would like to play, and he just said, as long as we don't get a big team away from home, because you don't touch the ball, so it's not very fun. And I think, I'm not sure if that's the view of the dressing room, but I think he definitely sort of is hoping for the quote unquote easiest possible tie at home, because we've seen with Exeter going to Man City. I was watching Wigan early today, recording this on the Sunday. In the space of 13 minutes, Arsenal scored 4 times, and Wigan were hoping it was not going to be a sort of 9-10-0. So, it can be very, very draining and tough. But he was good. I thought for me, the standouts were Lewis O'Brien, playing as a number 6. We spoke about that. We're going to get onto him specifically in a little minute. But him and Ollie Rathburn, I thought Ollie Rathburn got man of the match. Again, just was great. Constant ball of energy, and it's his relentlessness that opens up space for Windass and for Dobson and for O'Brien and for Thomason. And it was interesting because Rathburn kind of started as a 10 and then he slotted in, and we had a 3-man midfield, and we kind of went back to the 3-5-1-1. So it was slightly more packed in and condensed because I mentioned Dan Neil in there and Cajuste, and they had really, really strong, good midfield players, and Parky respected that and went for the 3-5-1-1, and then maybe Rathburn would advance. So he was kind of playing a hybrid role, and I just thought he was, even though he came off, I think, about 67 minutes, something like that, just before 70 minutes, he was far and away the man of the match for me.
That was kind of when our chances dried up a little bit, weren't they, in the closing stages when sort of Rathburn. What I love about him is he kind of, it's like he replaced Andy Cannon, isn't it? He has that directness in the final third. Then every time he's on the pitch, he will have a shot from outside the box, and he will have those runs. And he's one of those players who, when he gets the ball, he wants to run forward. And it sounds so simple, but it's very rare, and it's so refreshing to watch because Rathbone, and this isn't meant to mean that he's not an intelligent footballer, but he plays like a kid. Like when he gets the ball, he just wants to do something. Like he makes the right decision a lot with passing as well, but you can just tell there's like an excitement from him when he gets the ball, and it's just so good to watch. And again, another one of these players who there was such a question mark about him coming back from a long-term injury, coming back into a championship team after all the money we spent in the summer, all the midfielders we signed, and yet Ollie Rathbone it's so compelling. That midfield competition is so compelling because it does depend on your opposition, the fixture schedule, who you play. But yeah, what do you think the kind of future holds going forward in attacking midfield? Because it feels like we've got very different options for very different scenarios. And I know we always love to hypothetically talk about these, hypothesize, I should have said, sorry. I've had a pint tonight, so you can tell. Hypothesize like what our strongest 11 is. And again, there's so much context to that. But what do you think kind of the future does hold for those two number 10s? Do you think it depends on who the striker is as much as who the personnel are themselves?
I think the future holds that there are no set two number 10s and that it's constantly changing and the competition remains incredibly high. I think Windass will play a lot of games. Broadhead currently injured. Quickly, before we maybe talk about where Rathbone, is he a starter? Is he more of an impact? I think he probably should really be a starter now. I just want to play you this clip. I spoke to Josh Windass in the press conference, and this was one of his slightly longer answers, but it was about how he's feeling at this point in the season in his own game. How do you feel where you are just in terms of the season? Do you feel like you're now at the point where you can be peaking at the right time?
Yeah, obviously it's been frustrating. Obviously the last 2 months or so I was injured quite a bit. I was playing through injury quite a lot, so it was frustrating. Obviously not been able to play my best stuff, but obviously when you're playing through knocks and stuff, it's difficult. But yeah, obviously when I feel like we played a lot over Christmas, we won a lot of games. I've still scored a lot of goals, and yeah, I'm fully fit. So playing through injury was a bit difficult, but I'm fine now.
The manager was talking about trying to tell the group about the importance of the cup and how you should go and make your own history. Was he showing you kind of old clips, or what was his kind of messaging about this competition?
He just told us about how long it had been, really, since the club had got this far. And yeah, as players, you just go out there and try to win a football match, to be honest. And yeah, obviously, all the stuff that comes with it is for the fans and the people who support it, and it's our job to just go out there and win. So,
Rich, you can see that, or you can hear that he said just there that he's been playing through injury a lot, and you're not going to play your best. And I think with Windass as well, there have been question marks over certain performances, or he's maybe not been as effective here, or he's maybe not looked as up for it there. Really, none of us have been that privy to his injuries. And we've seen occasionally he puts on Instagram that like black and blue foot or all these other things. But if you're constantly getting painkilling injections and you're trying to go above and beyond and not complain about it and not sort of make a big song and dance about it, kind of puts into perspective that this quite introverted character is giving a lot more than maybe he gets credit for from people who are very critical of his body language.
Yeah, again, I think this is one of the sort of failures we have as, well, shortcomings maybe as sort of football fans, is that you just presume that if someone's not got an actual injury that's keeping them out of a game, they're fully fit. And the amount of sort of players and managers I've spoken to, and they say, look, it is so rare that a player is fully fit. They are always playing through knocks and niggles, and they're always sort of delaying surgeries they could be having, things like that. They are just playing through a pain barrier most weeks. Lots of players, that is common practice. And again, we talk about sort of the mental strain and the just personal life and how that it can impact you as a player. But even just having to play matches when you're not feeling fully fit and having to put your body through it, it's such a sacrifice and something that we so often overlook. And fair play to Josh, because I feel like sometimes he just needs an arm around the shoulder. He needs to feel the love. And I know at times this season, it just hasn't maybe been there for him. He's maybe not got that same love that lots of our previous players have had during this rise. And maybe that just comes from longevity, having those moments on the pitch. And I just feel like, I just need to be chanting his name or making him feel loved, make him feel like this is your home now, mate. We love having you. We know how talented you are. And because it's FA Cup weekend and Macclesfield will be playing on Monday night again, he reminds me of John Rooney so much. Like the talent is there. Doesn't always click for him. He takes those chances. And yeah, I just want Josh Windass to feel the love of the Wrexham fans, really, because when he is on it, he is such a good player. He's still got a point to prove, I think, because there's a reason maybe he's never pushed on, played in the Premier League. That is a genuine possibility for him now. I really want to see that hunger, that desire for him to go on and do that. But I feel like Windass is, again, what I love about that front, those forward options, Nath, is you've almost got players who can do very different things very well, can't you? And he is that classic number 10, I feel like, Windass. He's got that sort of Wayne Rooney street striker about him. And then you've got Rathbone, who's more of a direct sort of performer, not as maybe methodical on the ball. But yeah, I'm really compelled by the options we've got.
I think to just kind of circle back slightly to the number 10 debate, I think it's really interesting that most teams that will go up or win promotions usually are relying on a 20 goal a season forward. That is the kind of old adage, right? That have you got someone who can score 20 plus goals? That goal on Friday night, Windass is 9th of the campaign. I think by the end of the season, Broadhead should get himself up to 10. I think Windass will be maybe around the 12, 13 mark. and Kiefer has already passed 12 in all comps, I think it is. So we are really a kind of team goals by committee. Rathbone is chipping in here or there. And, the other night could even have been Longman's if Windass hadn't got the final touch. So I think we're kind of rewriting the script a little bit in terms of we don't have that one player that I think is far and away sort of a division leader in their position in attack. But we've got a lot of very good players who know how to score goals, who are busy and give opposition a lot to think about. Imagine Rathbone starts, and I think right now you should be kind of what's the phrase, riding the hot hand a little bit, like kind of going with him because he's playing so well. And then what if Nathan Broadhead comes off the bench, or Keeler Dunn, who scored a hell of a lot of goals for Barnsley and has been brought in as a depth piece? I think he knows that himself. If Windass starts, maybe you can bring him off on the hour mark if he's dealing with injury, and you chuck someone else on. Maybe even you chuck Sam Smith on with Kiefer. Maybe you can play Smith as one of the 10s and maybe move it around that way, especially if you're going to go with this 3-man midfield and have the 2 up top like it looked at times on Friday night. So I think there's every chance that quite a few of these number 10 options can finish with double-digit goals, which absolutely at the start of the season you would have taken.
Yeah, and again, like you said there, that's a really good assessment, because lots of teams you could be near the bottom of the table but have one of the top goal scorers in the division, and that isn't necessarily a good thing. It means you've got one player who scores a lot of goals, but the beauty of Wrexham is we are kind of the sum of our parts at times. Like, we don't necessarily always have a star player, and right now I think it's quite healthy that you look at this Wrexham team and there isn't kind of that one player in attack where you say they are the linchpin. I know start of the season it was all Kiefer. We've said that. I'm not backtracking on that, not revising that. But right now, there isn't that one player who has to be playing for us to win. Whereas, lower league days, Mullen and Palmer, they're the guys. Elliot Lee was the guy. But now there is that depth and strength and depth. And if you look now, I was just searching for the sort of the goals scored this season, like you said. Kiefer, 12 in all comps. Windass has 9. Broadhead has 6. Sam Smith and Rathbone have both scored 5. Lewis O'Brien's got 4. Longman's got 2. Then you've got a host of players who've all got 1 goal as well across different competitions. There are lots of goals in that attack, and then you add in DKD, you add in Calamatri. Like, it does feel now that no matter who's on the pitch, we've got a scoring threat.
So, Rich, how many of those do you think end up double digits? How many of those do you think get a double-digit return for goals? Because you mentioned Kiefer's the only one so far that's got double digits for goals.
Yeah.
And what was it? Windass on 9. We'd expect him to get that. How many do you think will realistically get to that figure, that total?
I don't think it's out of the question you get 4 of them. I think Windass, 1 more goal gets him to 10. Broadhead, could see him getting 4 more. And I could see Sam Smith getting 5, genuinely, just because of the minutes he's playing right now and the quality of chances he's putting away. I think it's a push for Rathbone to get another 5 goals this season. He'll probably score 3 goals, 2 in the playoff semi-finals and the winner at Wembley, knowing Ollie Rathbone. That's how he works. And O'Brien will come up clutch, with a important goal on the run as well, I'm sure. But yeah, I think you've got 4 players there who could all get double digits. And again, if you put it that way, and I know it doesn't kind of work this way, would you rather have a striker who's scoring you sort of 30, 35 goals a season, or 4 players who are sharing that between them? And I think from Parky's point of view, you want to spread it as much as possible, just because, one, it means if a player's injured, you've got someone to step in. Also means the opposition, if you line up with all 4 of those players in a lineup, well, they can't say he's the danger man because there's 4 of them. How do you stop all those different threats coming at you? So, yeah, I think sometimes people look at the Wrexham side from afar and they don't see that massive goal scorer. But the truth is, you've got lots of people going under the radar, chipping away, getting goals from everywhere. So, in essence, yeah, Ollie Rathbone did play well.
Talking of another midfielder then, Lewis O'Brien, we spoke about, well, we might have even spoken about it sort of earlier in the season, but definitely since the close of the transfer window, we were kind of saying that got loads of number 10s, Broadhead, Windass, Rathbone, DKD, and also that DKD signing, it's kind of like, why are you doing that when maybe you needed another central midfielder, deeper line midfielder, especially with Matty James causing damage to his big toe. I think a lot of people were questioning, which toe was it, and kind of could you wrap that up? That is the worst case scenario, right? But we'll see how quickly he can play through the pain barrier. He's not unfamiliar with painkiller injections and whatnot over the course of his career. But it has meant that Ben Sheaf didn't start the other night because you couldn't risk an injury to Ben Sheaf so soon. Dobson has played a lot of minutes and he was in there, as was Lewis O'Brien in a deeper role, which we suggested he probably will need to play more if he wants more minutes. And before I get your thoughts on the performance, Rich, this is what I asked Phil Parkinson after the game about Lewis O'Brien's performance. Hi Phil, congratulations. I asked about Lewis O'Brien in the deeper role.
Yes.
I've not seen him there as much, but thought you did really well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Obviously, we looked at it in the transfer window. I thought, do we bring in another midfield player? But obviously we went back of Lewis's performances in number 6 and we said whoever we bring in is not going to be as good as him. So we brought Davis Keeler-Dunn in who can play in that advanced role as a 10 to make sure we got cover. Lewis is a good player. I thought he was up against 2 really good players. Dan Neal, who captained Sunderland to promotion last year, and a very strong midfield. And I thought he was really, really good. But we knew he can do that, and he's so fit, he's so comfortable in the game. But he can handle the ball, he can burst past people in possession. And yeah, good question, because I agree with you. I thought he was really good tonight.
People talk about distractions of the cup and manage to focus on other things, but what can it do in terms of galvanising a club? If you get that big draw and the competition then maybe in training goes up another level.
Yeah, that's right. It's just like I said, it's just great for the club to be in this round, and I want to savour the moment of tonight because it is important for us, and of course winning breeds confidence. Not that we're low on confidence despite losing to Millwall, we'll take this with us down to Bristol on Tuesday.
So you could see, firstly, he praised the question, which, thank you to Parky for praising my journalism. But it is a point, right, that they said, look, we thought about getting a number 6. We only have 3 players for 2 positions. Doesn't really leave you much cover. But we realised we weren't going to get a better player than Lewis O'Brien, who's played there previously at Huddersfield, Swansea and elsewhere in his career. He's played that deeper role. And I thought the other night he looked very accomplished, and maybe he's found the way he can make an impact between now and May.
Yeah, it feels like that's the opening for him, doesn't it, really? And again, we spoke, when there's an injury in a Wrexham team, there's an opportunity. And so many of our best signings or best sort of breakthrough players have come because of injury. And what looked like a disaster turns out to be a blessing in disguise because someone else gets that opportunity. And you only have to go back, Nave, to last summer. We were talking, I know we probably say this about every single signing, but I think we were saying that Lewis O'Brien might be the best of the bunch just because of his pedigree, the fact that Swansea fans are saying he's Premier League ready already at that stage. He's got age on his side. He just looks like a really exciting profile of player. That sort of Swiss Army knife midfielder, can do a little bit of everything. And I think from his point of view, he probably now wants to be specialising anyway, because it's great being a utility player to an extent and that versatility, but it can actually be used against you because it means that when push comes to shove, you're just on the bench because they don't need you as a starter to be a specialist in the position. So I'm really excited to see what he can offer. I really want to see him have that run in the team and kind of focus on what he does best. And this isn't something I'm going to go take a backward step on because he missed a hell of a lot of amazing opportunities this season. And being further up the pitch meant he was getting exposed and put in those positions. Confidence in front of goal diminished with every chance that kind of fell his way and it didn't go into the back of the net. And maybe playing deeper just means he can focus on doing the other aspects of his game. There's less scrutiny on his finishing. If a number 6, if a central midfielder is scoring a goal, it's seen as a massive kind of bonus. If a number 10, an attacking midfielder, is missing a chance to score, it's seen as a massive negative on their game. So I think just for O'Brien, it could be the perfect way for him to get game time, to get that match sharpness, that consistency, that rhythm that's maybe been missing this season. And yeah, that's probably where the future lies. If Parky's saying it as well, that's real endorsement of his talents. If you're saying, look, we looked out on the market and we couldn't find anyone else who was better value for money or could do the job better than Lewis can, whether that is the entirety of the issue or not, whether they were actually looking behind the scenes, it remains to be seen. But yeah, it's a huge endorsement to him. And again, credit to us that we've got such a good squad that is still untapped. There's so much more to come from this Wrexham team. And Lewis O'Brien's one of those players because the hype for him at the start of the season was so high. And maybe over the last few months, he's had to watch on as others have taken the limelight. So this is your chance and take it.
I think his composure on the ball is what was really impressive to me the other night. Like, took it in really tight spaces, and wasn't flawless in his passing. Did give the ball away like every player did on the night on occasion, but he is a very good passer. He is very cool on the ball, and I think it was quite interesting when maybe we were out of possession, when Rathbone would sort of slot in, and you would form that 3-man midfield with Dobson, Rathbone, and O'Brien. It was kind of like 3 8s really in there. Really, that's what you would rather have O'Brien as, but just allowing him to anchor the team and have that protection either side. And then when we had the ball, Rathbone was able to push on, and has got the energy to sort of scamper around all day. And the beauty of someone like O'Brien and allowing someone like Rathbone to run himself into the ground for 65 minutes and then bring someone else on. What we said about the squad building, both in the summer and in January, was that you want to be able to make 5 subs. Like, you want to be able to use all them. You want players to just run themselves into the ground for an hour and just give you the absolute maximum. But to do that, you are going to need pieces where someone is just kind of a steady hand at the tiller. And O'Brien wasn't, going on these incredible mazy runs and finding himself one-on-one. He was just kind of sat in there. Took him the first few minutes, I felt like he was trying to get to grips with a physically superior player in Cajuste. And that was very difficult, like twice his size almost. But once he kind of got to grips with it and was able to just find that rhythm, that passing game, I thought he really did stand out. And also a shout out as well to Callum Doyle. I mean, the defensive effort as a whole was really good, but Doyle just over the last few weeks has, really settled into it and has put his kind of early season wobble behind him a bit. So we're coming into a situation now where we're still in the cup. And I know some people won't care about the cup. We're still in the cup. Got a chance of a huge draw, something like a 77% chance of getting a Premier League team if Brentford go ahead and beat Macclesfield. We're in a very good position in the league. We dropped outside the playoff places ahead of Tuesday night's game just by virtue of Derby playing and winning. But, I mean, if you'd have said at the start of the season, get to Valentine's Day and you'll be in the playoff picture and you'll be in the 5th round of the FA Cup, I'm not sure that many would have believed you, really.
Again, I keep on saying this, and this is the whole journey. I remember when Wrexham were in non-league, I started it's when we were rest of the world on FIFA, EAFC, if you want to call it that. And I did a career mode of Wrexham, and I got 3 successive promotions. And by the time I got to the championship, I thought, well, it's just not realistic. Like, it's kind of lost the realism. It's not fun anymore. And then we went out in real life and did it ourselves. It was like, oh, that is possible. It's obscene what Wrexham have done. And again, after every single defeat or drop points or whatever, you can get so cynical and get so kind of lost in the moment, which is fine. That's what being a sports fan is all about. It's about being irrational and not looking at the wider picture because you've got very raw emotions. But man, we are living our absolute best life at the moment. And, watching the FA Cup this weekend has been funny because so many of the Premier League managers have been asked. I was at City on Saturday, and one of the questions Pep was asked was it like playing without VAR anymore? And he was nonplussed answer. He was like, we didn't notice it wasn't in action, basically. But we'll get to the Premier League.
That was not the case. That was not the case at Aston Villa Newcastle. Yeah. I kind of sorry to butt in there, but even Unai Emery, who benefited from a load of howler decisions without VAR, said that referees need VAR to function.
Right, yeah, exactly. This is what worries me. What worries me is that in a year's time, we're just going to become a VAR pod, and we'll be talking about this over-sanitized, over-referee, over-sort of scrutinised Premier League Wrexham. And right now, it's all about the journey. The destination's going to be great when we get there, but just enjoy where we're up to. This right now, could genuinely go down as Wrexham's best ever season, highest ever league finish. Who knows? We could get to an FA Cup quarter-final, even a semi-final. This is as good as it might get, and that's fine if it doesn't. We're dreaming of the Premier League, but whatever happens, just enjoy it, guys. This is so, so good. And yeah, Nath, after the short break, we'll get onto the FA Cup draw. We'll talk about the teams we could face. We'll read out some of your responses as well, and just enjoy it. Whatever happens, enjoy it and back the boys and make a lot of noise.
Rob Ryan Reds.
With Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
Rob Ryan Reds.
Rich, who do you want then? Who do you want in the 5th round? Because Josh Windass does not want that big team. Phil Parkinson would like another home draw. He doesn't feel that's too greedy. What would you like if you could put the kind of hot and cold balls in the bowl?
It's got to the point now. I got a message all over the weekend like, what do you want? I want Premier League at home. I want a chance to knock one of the big boys out on our turf, because I know we keep on talking about the one thing that's been missing, and it was always Premier League match for us to test ourselves. We've knocked Forest out, amazing, but this is a Forest team who've just gone and sacked Sean Dyche as well. I want us to knock out City or Arsenal at home. That's because I feel like even when we knocked out Nottingham Forest, there was still people saying, yeah, but it's only Forest you've knocked out. Like, whatever Wrexham do is diminished in some way, isn't it? And if we knock out Man City, it'd be like, Haaland only played an hour. Oh, okay, so that's not good enough anymore. Oh, yeah, but City aren't the treble winners anymore. I feel like whatever Wrexham do, people try and diminish it somehow. So I want a shot. I want Wrexham against one of the Premier League elite at home, and I want a chance just to show how good we are or how far we are off from the very top. And just, that's one of the few spectacles, I think, at this moment in time, because the higher we get in the table, playing lots of these teams doesn't have the same kind of credence to it that it used to have. You look back even at our history, some of the greatest ever Wrexham results, and I think it was it this weekend? I can't remember. It was the anniversary of the Birmingham game in '97, and that's like Wrexham winning 3-1 away at St Andrews. That goes down as one of the greatest ever Wrexham away days, one of the greatest ever FA Cup games. We're above them in the league now. So it kind of, not like the history is kind of taking the edge off a little bit, but I don't think it would ever do that if you knock out Arsenal again, if you knock out City, if you knock out Liverpool at home. Like, they will stand the test of time. Whereas I think, and this is no disrespect, if we knock West Ham out in the next round at home, people saying, yeah, but they're the team who's about to get relegated from the Premier League. Or if we knock out Wolves, people say, yeah, but there's only 10 league places between those two teams. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you went to watch Man City. What team did they put out? How strong was the team they put out against Salford?
They made
you imagine it'd be similar.
Yeah, they made what they said was wholesale changes. So Phil Foden played, Marmoush played, Tijani Rangers played. They still had John Stones as captain. They only sort of had one. Max Allain was the only sort of reserve player who started the game. That's due to injury. And then they brought on McAdoo after, 20 minutes or something. But, City went strong. Arsenal went strong against Wigan. Liverpool playing Brighton went strong enough as well. Like, I want to see us play one of the elite teams. That's what I want to see. Before we get onto it then, Nev, shall I read out who's in the hat? Because like I said,
yes,
FA Cup draws on Monday night, about 6:30 British Greenwich Mean Time. That is it. It's part of the build-up to Brentford-Macclesfield. So these things are never precise. But the official word from the FA is 6:35 approximately is when it will start on Monday night. 16 teams in the hat. Winners go to the quarterfinal. Again, one-legged ties, no replays, extra time, and penalties if required. The teams in the hat: Fulham, Liverpool, Sunderland, Southampton, Wrexham, Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham, Mansfield, Norwich, Port Vale or Bristol City, Wolves, Newcastle, Man City, Macclesfield or Brentford, and Leeds United. Leeds United, they're the only team Wrexham have never played in a competitive match. That has got its own sort of, I think, like I said, if you're not going to get a Premier League elite, I think a trip to Ellen Road is the next best thing, just because we've never played them. Again, not too difficult to get to. And yeah, it's exciting, mate. What do you want? Or are you one of these people, and I don't want to call you one of these people, do you just want Mansfield at home and the best chance of getting to the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed if it was Mansfield at home. I can't say with no disrespect to Mansfield, because it's like every disrespect possible that I want the worst team at home.
And they've just knocked Burnley out.
They have, but I would still take those odds. I would still say, give us the best chance, go strong, Mansfield at home, or like the winner of Port Vale or Bristol City at home. Something like that I would absolutely take. I still think my prediction is it'll still be West Ham at the racecourse, a team and it'll be similar to the Forest game. I watched West Ham play Burton Albion. They rotated heavily, they struggled, and then they brought on Somerville, and then they brought on Castellanos, and they looked kind of a Premier League team. But also, we want to get to the Premier League, we want to get promoted, and there's an element of exposure therapy, kind of dipping your toe in the water with playing a Wolves, with playing a West Ham, with playing a Forest. Nottingham Forest have still got players valued at 100 million. Morgan Gibbs-White came on, was amazing. Callum Hudson-Odoi came on, was amazing. And likely had they started the game, we wouldn't be in the 5th round of the FA Cup. Similarly with Burton, probably wouldn't have got to extra time if Somerville would have played the full 90. So I think something like West Ham at home would be a really good occasion, because I like the fact that they will concentrate on the league. They will be similar to Ipswich. They won't go all out, and it is a Premier League team. And look, we were there at West Ham recently. They played very well against Man United. You know, it's a different sort of occasion to get up for when you're playing Man United versus playing Wrexham. I understand that, but you know, they are no scrubs. And look, I was watching Aston Villa Newcastle. I was covering that game for work on Saturday night. Newcastle had a team that included Sandro Tonali in midfield, an accomplished Italian international. Nick Voltemada, £69 million attacker, as the kind of number 10. They had Kieran Trippier, really established England international throughout his career. Ramsdale, Chow, Dan Burn, Lewis Hall. They were really good. They were really, really good. So I think if it's not, say, West Ham at home, which is my prediction, I've got a soft spot for the guys in the London Reds, so I wouldn't mind like Fulham away or something. I'd go up against Harry Wilson. We've already knocked out Nico, and I think Fulham away, right on the Thames, would be a cracking day out for everyone.
Get your charcuterie boards at the ready. Yeah, I mean, West Ham away would be a great spectacle. But as I said, we were there earlier this week. We were at West Ham, and my God, that away end. I do not find, if you accidentally end up in the upper tier or on the lower tier, I do not envy you whatsoever if that happens. But like I said, the draw will be Monday night. The one thing we can agree on, Nath, anyone but Norwich away.
That'd be I think that Norwich and Southampton away would be the worst possible draws, right? Like, yes, if you get, you know, one of the big boys away, you might get thumped, but it's an occasion. It's kind of hard work for all the players that get to play that. Norwich away. I honestly think Norwich looks so good right now. Yeah. We're like a Norwich City podcast. Keep saying how great they are, and maybe they might sneak a run to the playoffs. They are really good under Clement, and if they don't, you know, make the playoffs this season, they're going to be right up there next season. I've no doubt about it. They keep seeming to find gem after gem. Like, who are some of these players that are scoring for them? I've never heard of them, and they look world beaters. So this guy at the minute, Traore, I think it is, he's scored 3 goals in 2 games or something, in incredible form. So I would not want to play Norwich, and I would not want to play Southampton.
Norwich won 7 of the last 8. I've just looked at. Their only defeat was away at Middlesbrough. Like, they are the team. And again, Norwich is such a ball ache to get to. Southampton's such it's just so inconvenient. We've been there already this season. Norwich as well in the league, we won there. Southampton, we could have won there. I know people might say, well, there's a chance of revenge, but I do just think, you know, from a Wrexham perspective, and transport, getting to there, because you get an increased away allocation as well in the FA Cup, you get extra. So, you know, going to Norwich might not have the same appeal because it's just so difficult to get to. It isn't, you know, you are playing a team who's below you in the league, same as Southampton, but a team, they're both difficult games where just because we're higher than the division, you wouldn't necessarily expect us to win either. So let us know in the comments below. Like I said, you might have seen the draw by the time this one's over. We will try and bring as much coverage of that as we can on Triple R on Monday night. Nath is out though, so when I say us, I mean me. And when I mean me, I mean I could easily forget that this is going to happen. So,
Rich, I'm at a dinner reservation for my mum's birthday. Shout out to my mum in advance. Which the reservation is made for 6:30, and you said the draw's at 6:35. What's a typical grace period for delaying
15
the order
minutes.
process? 15 minutes.
Yeah,
That might with the way these FA Cup draws are drawn out and kind of elongated, that might not be enough time. So I will be frantically watching on my phone or waiting for you to text me the team. But I'm going to manifest a very, very good tie at home. That's what Parky wants.
Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
well, Nath, we said at the very start of the podcast, we'll bring you some pre-season details. And we were very lucky this week to be joined by friend of the show, Peter Moore. Now, Peter was an advisor to Wrexham during the takeover process, obviously had key roles at Sega, Xbox, Liverpool, and now at Wisla Krakow as well. And he has played a key role in that pre-season fixture this summer. So we caught up on him, just talking about Wrexham's journey, the gap between the Championship and the Premier League, how Wrexham makes so much money, and of course that trip to Poland coming up this summer. So Peter, welcome back to the show. I think the last time we had you on, we were still a non-league team with very hearty ambitions. And
wow, it's back to back years ago.
Yeah, you blink once and now look at us, sick from the Championship, and yeah, just seems like there's so much possibility. What have you made of watching the journey? Did you expect us to do it this quickly?
No, and to the credit of obviously Rob and Ryan and the entire team there at the racecourse, they've done it in an amazing manner, but also in a thoughtful, strategic manner. You've got to build for the next season. You've got to have a squad. You've got to make very difficult decisions, as we've seen with some of our favorite players that, unfortunately we've had to say goodbye to because it just was too much of a stretch going to the next level. But here we are as we speak here. We're in, contention for playoffs, and it's already historic, obviously, but it would be absolutely amazing if we were playing in the Premier League next season.
Peter, I think when you and I spoke last, that one of the most interesting things I took away from that was the kind of, as giddy as fans as we get as fans, and you want to go to the next level, and Rob and Ryan absolutely do. And, in their recent interview with The Athletic, they were talking about, what happens when you're top of the Premier League. So, they're as giddy as anyone. It was the kind of the warnings of when you go up, everything becomes that bit more expensive and every mistake is even more costly. Going from the Championship to the Premier League, for anyone who didn't hear our previous chat, what are the big challenges there? Because now we're talking huge money, huge external investors, huge infrastructure sort of problems and complications. What's the kind of big thing that's in Wrexham's way now to make that big step?
Well, there's nothing really in its way, but it's a massive step because you're going from the Football League to the Premier League. You're going now to being one of 20 shareholders in the world's biggest sports league. And, I think the good news is that this has been, thought about. We're building out the race course to what will be potentially 20,000, which is a lot more than some Premier League teams have right now. And the challenge obviously is going to be, how do you manage your finances? You're going to get a lot of money coming in, but to be competitive, to stay there, to not be one of these, yo-yo teams that go up and down, which we see on a regular basis, because you get the parachute payments on the way back down again, and that allows you to bounce up. But unless you can find a self-sustaining model that can keep quality players at the salary levels we see that Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, etc., can offer, it's a challenge. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts, as we say. You've got all of that money now coming in through the media. You've got the opportunity to play back in Europe, which I remember fondly from the 70s, when the Welsh Cup would get you into the European Cup Winners' Cup. But with that comes a massive amount of pressure, particularly if you're languishing in the bottom third at any particular point, to maintain that status as a Premier League club. And you just don't want to be one of those yo-yo clubs going back up and down again. And look, I mean, we look now at Leicester City, we look at Sheffield Wednesday. I could name 10 clubs right now that you say to me, yeah, they were a Premier League club, but are well behind us, in League One and in some instances League Two. And you just don't want to go down that slippery slope. We won't, but it's got to be well built, well thought out, strategic, and well financed.
I guess that's another aspect of going forward, isn't it? Because with the stadium, there's so much more opportunities there for revenue to come in through hospitality, through commercial deals and stuff. And do you think that is almost like Wrexham's secret weapon? Because lots of other teams who are in this promotion picture this season, if they go up, they won't have that same growth or platform that Wrexham have.
Yeah, I mean, you think of Luton Town, Kenilworth Road. I mean, they had to spend a lot of money to get it up to Premier League status, and it just wasn't there. And they got it there, and they didn't survive long. And I don't even know where they are right now. I need to go check the tables. But you then do that even worse, as you invest in infrastructure very quickly. And that infrastructure then falls to the wayside because you're sat in League One again. But we're in an amazing position. The building out at I still call it the Crispin Lane end, the COP, has been thought through for the last couple of years. We've got a catchment area that's incredibly unique versus other clubs, in which we can reach, to the west, to the east, to the north, and the south, and have our own fan base that we can own and bluntly monetize, which we need to do. And game day revenues are absolutely critical. Go look at the Deloitte Money League, where it breaks down game day revenues. and certainly something I learned at Liverpool. That is a very competitive advantage when you can build out, obviously ticketing revenue, corporate hospitality, merchandise sales, and build that out as a competitive advantage that allows you to take part in what we'll call a virtuous cycle of football, which is make more money, buy better players, pay better players, win more games, make more money, buy better players, win more games. And that is the classic virtuous cycle of football, which we need to get into.
Before Rich gets onto pre-season and the reason we got you on talking about this great trip to Krakow, it'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because it's been a big debate recently about, you've been very high up in football, and we're seeing increasingly teams in the Premier League particularly exploring multi-club models, and Manchester City and various other, Chelsea with Strasbourg. I'm kind of going slightly off on a tangent here, but is that something you think will become more common? I'm thinking if in the future Wrexham get to the Premier League, is that something that you think a lot of clubs will look at, and something maybe Wrexham down the line should be exploring? Because it seems like it's a growing trend that clubs are copycats usually, and it seems like it's the in thing right now for top teams.
Yeah, I mean, let's unpack what that means. It means, you've got a holding company, City Football Group. Let's use that, probably the preeminent example, that acquires football clubs in different regions. And why? They want movement of players. They want access to academies. They want this collective power of maybe 8 clubs coming together. Best practices operationally, preseason friendlies where you play against each other, movement of back office and front office talent that you can bring across. You see what Chelsea have been able to do most recently, with their managerial change. And there's no doubt that clubs done right can benefit from this. So, the power of one is fine, but if you've got this collective, and you do all of those things, then your football club, as a result, is going to be better, more global, have greater reach for academy talent, moving players from Wrexham to a South American club, bringing South American players to Wrexham. All of that is possible. And I think that ultimately is the key, I think, that these holding companies do, where they have MCO, multi-club ownership, is movement of talent. As talent now becomes so much more expensive, as even we at Wrexham are learning, the ability to have homegrown talent, and homegrown meaning not only Wrexham Academy, but maybe an academy in South America or Asia or Eastern Europe, who knows? And so from that perspective, yeah, I'm sure it's something that ownership and management is looking at, but got a lot to do in the short term here before we worry about that.
Yeah, talking of the short term, it's getting closer anyway. A trip to Poland this summer, and marriage for you of 2 of your loves in life, 2 of your interests. Can you tell us more about Wrexham's first pre-season friendly, how it's come about, and how are you feeling about it?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited, and how it came about. My other life, as you guys know, is video games. In my history with Sega and Xbox and EA. And in the last few years, I've been helping game developers around the world just get going and get through the challenges they have. In the last couple of years, I've been helping a company in Krakow, Poland, Reality Games, who have a Monopoly game that's kind of geo-based. You remember Pokemon Go, that type of thing. And I'm getting the detail of that. And so in May, I visited with him and his team there, and instantly fell in love with a beautiful city. And we'll talk about that. But he said, would you mind meeting the owner of the local professional team here, a very historic team, and I was obviously aware of them. And he'd love to meet you and talk about his challenges. He's young and he's in his late 30s, and he's acquired the club. They've been through difficult times, and this all started to sound very familiar to me. And they're now getting ready for promotion and rebuilding out their squad and getting their stadium ready. And so I went one evening and walked around the stadium with him and chatted about some of the challenges, talked about my Liverpool experience, talked about Wrexham. And as I found out, Welcome to Wrexham is very, very popular in Poland. So everybody in Poland knew about Wrexham. And so, we chatted about that, didn't think twice about it. And then as I got very involved with the club, and I have a 5% ownership of the club, Yaroslav Królewski, the owner, said, we've got our 120th anniversary as a football club next year, 2026. And we're looking at teams that would not only draw a crowd, but have some relevance and some historical relevance. And wouldn't it be great if we could get Wrexham to come to Krakow? And I said, well, I'll give it a go. And so I reached out to a number of my friends who are now part of that. In particular, Tina Roberts, who's the chief of staff at Wrexham, who was my executive assistant at Liverpool, and said, hey, here's the deal. So here's how we pronounce it, guys. Wisla Krakow is facing its 120th anniversary. They were founded in 1906, a great club with an amazing history, which we can talk about, in this beautiful city. And we put together a proposal and worked back and two with a very engaged team there at Wrexham. And we're able to kind of put pen to paper just a few weeks ago and wanted to announce it quickly as part of the celebrations, because it's not going to be just one game of the 120th anniversary. And yeah, we're good to go. So it'll be July 11th, probably a local 3:00 kickoff. And I already noticed that all of the flights out of Liverpool and Manchester and Leeds and West Midlands into Poland are sold out. So it'll be a great weekend, and we can talk about the city. But Wrexham are excited, to your point a little bit, Rich, to be back in Europe, if you will, and as I say, in the good old days. And it's going to be a great weekend for the fans. It's a beautiful city, a really nice time of year, and one that I would implore, if you're going to go spend a few days there, explore the city and its history. And have a great time. And it's an amazing football club. Absolutely amazing.
We've seen reports about, maybe Wrexham playing in Finland against Man United and maybe in New York against Liverpool. And, they're good games in their own right. But it was, speaking for myself, Rich, and friends that we were chatting to about the Krakow game, is that one does feel, we didn't get to go to Groningen in the Netherlands. That was not for fans. This one is a real celebration, a proper European trip, a proper European adventure. And, how long will it be before Wrexham are competing in Europe? We don't know how long that will be. But the press conference, there just seemed to be a great deal of excitement, mainly probably because Mickey Thomas was there. But what was that experience like? Because it did seem like, from a journalistic point of view, obviously that is our jobs, that there was a real buzz. And a few years ago, pre-takeover, I personally could never have imagined that I would have been saying that about a team in Poland caring so much about playing Wrexham. So it kind of shows just how big a draw Wrexham have become.
Yeah, no, what you probably couldn't see, there were probably 30 or 40 members of the media there, and subsequent stories have been in the hundreds. And so the linkage for me, and I'll take you back to Wrexham in the 60s, and I'm at Grove Park Grammar School for Boys in 1966. And I'm going to school with kids with Polish names. And, I didn't think much of it. This is, post-World War II. As it turns out, as I dove in the last 6 months, and I think I was aware of this, in Penley, which is a little town, a little community that is not far from Llangollen, Rich, to the east, post-World War II, the local people in North Wales built out a hospital for Polish veterans. As you probably know, Poland and Britain fought together, and Poland being invaded by the Nazis got Britain into World War II as a result of their pact. And so the Polish fighters were given a home just outside of Wrexham, where the Polish community, which if you live there, you're very familiar with the fact there's a very strong Polish community still to this day, second, third generation of those soldiers that came back to rehabilitate in Penley Hospital post-World War II. So the Polish links in Wrexham were strong. And then secondly, I started, and I'm a bit of a historian, I started to look at the mining history, but it's both are mining cities, if you will. Coal in Wrexham, salt in Poland. And so in my second trip to Krakow, I visited these amazing salt mines. And you probably shaking your heads, what could be amazing about a salt mine? I know you'll go there in July and you'll go to the salt mines and your minds will be blown for what you find below ground: chapels, basketball courts, restaurants that are carved out of salt, is part of the attraction, world famous attraction there. So all of this started to come together for me. I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could get Wrexham to come here and not only play a great game in front of what will be a sellout crowd of 33,000 in a classic Eastern European atmosphere, but also to have a great weekend away for fans from North Wales to come and take a break. Subsequent to this, I dove into some of the tourist numbers of British tourists coming into Krakow, and it's in the tens of thousands every year. The salt mines are an attraction. The history of Krakow, as was previously the capital city of Poland 1,000 years ago before Warsaw took over. And on a more somber note, you're only 45 minutes away from Auschwitz, which I visited on my second visit there. I felt obligated to pay homage to the victims of Nazi Germany and the invasion of Poland there. So if you're up for that as well, when you come, you can visit Auschwitz, Birkenau as part of a tour group and see, the atrocities there. It's not for a lot of people, but I certainly went there. So all in all, I think this will be an amazing weekend, and it'll be a great football match as well, celebrating one of Europe's most historic clubs.
I remember when we spoke last, Rich, to Peter, was actually before Wrexham were travelling out to Santa Barbara. I think that was it for the Bournemouth game. And one of the things that was most pleasing about this game, kind of the European element of it, but the fact that it is more accessible to fans to go there. Like I say, I've never been to Krakow. I know you have, Rich. I think you went when it was blazingly hot. I've never been, so I'm excited to go. But a lot of people, these US trips have been far. These Australia trips have been far. And the one thing Wrexham haven't done so far is kind of spread their wings in Europe. I think we've focused heavily on the US market, which is understandable, and Canada and Australia. But maybe people don't quite realize just how popular the documentary is in places like Poland and Italy and Spain and all these other territories that actually Wrexham have a lot of great stories like Wisla Krakow that they can explore in the years to come.
Yeah, I mean, what you learn through football, I certainly learned this at Liverpool, having the Champions League run, was it just, not only do you get to go to great stadiums, you get to go to great cities and places that without football you never would have gone to. And this is a prime example. And the other thing we looked at straight away, it's about a 2-hour flight from the Northwest. Already I started to see Liverpool Airport make a statement that we're going to try to put on some extra flights, EasyJet, Ryanair, obviously. For less than 2 hours in the air, you're in this magical world that it just opens your horizons. Football being the reason. I always remember at Liverpool doing a Deloitte economic impact study about the power of Liverpool Football Club in relation to Merseyside and to the city of Liverpool itself. And the one takeaway I always remember is we came for the football, we came back for the city. And that was with the words that we heard. Liverpool, still gets this stupidly bad rap of, they'll steal your hubcaps, all of this ridiculous stuff. As you guys both know, it's a wonderful city, but you've got to go there and experience it. And if football is the reason you go there, then so be it. You'll see the same with Krakow. I mean, the history, the amazing architecture, the market square, one of Europe's biggest market squares, the church there, all amazing. And it's a great weekend away. And I'm really looking forward to it on July 11th.
Less welcome to Wrexham, more welcome to Wisla then. I want to ask you then, Pete, final question really is, what does the future hold for them as a football club? Because we all know Wrexham's ambition is to get to the very top and to win it all. Is it going to be, a Champions League final against Wisla Krakow in 5-6 years then?
Yeah, well, I've taken an interest in Polish football in general, which has got a lower coefficient, I think, than it should do with UEFA. And they're starting to get back next season into some of those early Champions League, right? Big clubs like Legia Warsaw need to be back in there. Right now, Wisła Krakow is top of League One by a comfortable 12 points. And all being well, we get promoted to what's known as the Ekstraklasa, which is the Polish Premier League, if you will, and get back to where we belong. And then start fighting. The next step is you have to stabilize and then start fighting for European qualification. It'd be great to be playing in the Conference League or the Europa League, and ultimately maybe Champions League final. And there's no doubt that Wrexham have that in their strategic plan as well. And like I was saying earlier, I remember the great days watching Arvin Griffiths run the team out against, either Porto, Anderlecht, Hajduk Split, I remember. And these were great nights at the racecourse, pack in 20,000 there and beat these teams, and really, obviously this was part of the European Cup Winners' Cup because the Welsh Cup was part of that in those days, and the winner of the Welsh Cup would go on. But, those days are hopefully not far away.
Well, Nath, it's not quite a trip to Poland for us on Tuesday night. We will be there at Ashton Gate, Bristol City. It's interesting because, as you said, Wrexham didn't play in the league at the weekend. We've dropped down to 8th place now, 1 point behind Derby and Preston, who are in 6th and 7th, respectively. And we're also 1 point ahead of Bristol City, who started the season so well, last season's semi-finalists in the playoffs. We strolled past them at the Kairos when we were in that fancy hospitality earlier in the season. Thank you very much again to Barlow's for that. Hint, hint. But 1 point ahead of them. What do you make of this? Because while I'm looking at the form table, Bristol City have the 13th best home form in the Championship this season, better on the road, but they seem to be basically identical to us because both ourselves and Bristol City have taken 24 points at home this season. And then on the road, we've taken 23 and they've taken 22. So they seem to be a very similar side to us.
Which would explain their league position, which is just below us, right? So that would check out. I think it's an interesting game. They are a team that likes to play a very high line. They are quite aggressive in their style, and they will win games big, and they will also lose games quite big as well. They've lost Mehmeti to Ipswich. That's a big loss. They've lost Viner to us, although I don't think Viner will play. I just don't want to lose the game. And I want two things. I want Sam Smith to start. I want Ollie Rathbone to start. I want to kind of go high energy, try and get as many channel runners, get what we can in behind, go with Kabore, although shout out to Longman, I thought he did play quite well the other night, but go with Kabore, go with Thomason, and just try to put them under as much pressure on the counter-attack, because that's what I think they will offer you. I think they will go with quite a high line. I think they will try to dictate the game. I think they will try to be aggressive. It's about us being compact in there and trying to spring the counter-attack, which I think should suit Sam Smith. So I just don't want us to lose the game. I think if we come away with at least a point and then we go into that Ipswich game, which is a massive game for both teams, they cannot afford to go another game, scoreless against Wrexham. That's twice we've shut out Ipswich right now. And Bristol City, I think it's a much harder game than what it was at home. From those fancy posh seats that we were in, I vaguely remember that they had chances as well at the tech end. Mehmeti and others had a couple of good chances. So, look, it's a game to be bold, but we're also going to have to hold our nerve and decide when that is. Ashton Gate's a tough place to go. It'll be a really good occasion there under the lights. And that is a Premier League ground, in my opinion, waiting to happen. They've never made it there. But just don't lose the game, especially after the high of a cup. And if we get an amazing draw, spirits will be up. The players are going to watch that draw in the hotel in Bristol. Yeah, I'm sure the blood will be pumping if it's great. And if it's Mansfield, we might go a different type of way. Josh Windass will be happy, yeah. But he's so understated that you might not be able to tell. But we'll see. If it is, say, like an Arsenal, Liverpool, or Man City, and everyone's buzzing, there is a small matter of facing another playoff contender that is very, very important. So just don't lose the game and be sort of smart when to pick your moment, because they will give you chances.
Yeah, and to sum up Bristol City, their last two matches, their last home game, they lost 5-0 at home to Derby County, and then they followed it up with a 3-2 win away at Hull. That is the two sides of this Bristol team, and that's why I know most weeks we're really indecisive. It's difficult to gauge, but what are you facing? That is so difficult. Maybe it's the fact that they're at home. There might be a bit more pressure on, again, like you said there, that expectation for them to go on and do something, but they feel like a team who are just, like you said, they've lost one of the best players, one of the best creative players in the division, going with Mehmeti. They've also had the high of last season. The season started so well this campaign. Now they're kind of on the slump, and they're one of those teams who, although they're so close to the playoffs, if they then don't go and beat us, they could kind of drop quite quickly and become a mid-table team. The mood could change very quickly there again. So, yeah, like you said, really important week now for Wrexham. The Cup's a great distraction. It's brilliant to have. But ultimately, we have got Bristol away on Tuesday night. We'll be back for a podcast midweek. and then it's Ipswich again on Saturday night. Nath, predictions then. Shall I ask you for Bristol, or should we just do our points tally for the week? Because it's one of those weeks where I actually don't think 2 points from the next week's that bad. But then some people might say, well, it's better to beat Bristol and lose to Ipswich anyway. But I kind of wouldn't be that upset if we took 2 points this week. But then by virtue of that, maybe it's the same as getting 1 point. It feels like we are playing some really difficult games now, and it might even out a little bit for us in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to obviously record again before Ipswich, but I'm going to go with 3 points. Like I said, I don't want to sort of lose the game at Bristol, but I think we might win one and lose the other. I think 3 points. Like I say, Bristol City play a boom or bust approach. They are either going to win 5-0 or lose 5-0. Rarely feels in between. They do score a lot of goals. They concede a lot of goals. We're a lot more of a steady Eddie than, say, Bristol City. We're a lot more kind of, we might, just keep it 0-0 until late on and maybe score once, and that's good enough. I don't think this season, have we won by 4 or more goals this season? If so, I cannot remember that happening. I can't remember that happening for quite a while, which is fine, but boom or bust is not our MO under Phil Parkinson, which is why we've been so successful. So I'm going to go, out of the 2 games, I think 3 points, 3 out of 6.
There we go. Let us know again in the comments below what you reckon from the week ahead. We'll be back in midweek to look back at what happened against Bristol City, reflect on the FA Cup draw, and bring you a preview for that Ipswich game on Saturday as well. Take care wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us once again on Rob, Ryan and Red. Thank you to Red 10 People Development for the continued support of the podcast, and to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings we hear in the show. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.